It is 6:30. I'm going to go ahead and I'll call to order the joint meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Overlay District Board. Time is 6:30. It is Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, and we do have a quorum present. The first item on the agenda is to consider the approval of the minutes of the November 16th, 2021 joint meeting with the Overlay District Board. And if there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Motion by Karen.
Second.
Second by Aaron. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a plat. It's the final plat of the TDH Stewart's Addition, lots 7R1, 7R2, and 7R3, Block B, on 0.69 acres out of the John W. King Survey, abstract number 696. It is zoned single-family residential district, located at 520 and 506 North Charles Street, being a replat of Lot 7, Block B, TDH Stewart's Addition.
Good evening, Commissioners. Louisville Development staff has reviewed this plat in accordance with the Texas Local Government Code. Has found a list of deficiencies. 2 variances were also identified. A Zoning Board of Adjustment variance required to allow a 55-foot lot width, and a City Council variance to allow the lots to be front entry. Staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission disapprove the final plat for all the deficiencies listed above and bring back to the Planning and Zoning Commission once the variance requests have been made.
Thank you, Jonathan. Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Okay, at this time I will go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, sign in, and state your name. Having no one come forward, I will go ahead now and close the public hearing. Commissioners, any discussion? If not, may I have a motion?
I make a motion to disapprove and delegate to staff authority to approve when all delinquencies have been addressed.
Motion by Francis.
Second.
Second by Aaron. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. The next item is also a public hearing for the final plat of Castle Hills Phase 4, Section B, lots 1R and 4, Block P, on 1.7387 acres out of the Harrison Young Survey, abstract number 1448, zoned General Business District. It's located at the southeast corner of FM 544 and FM 2281, being a replat of lots 1R1 and 1R2, Block P, Castle Hills Phase 4.
Commissioners, Louisville Development staff has reviewed this plat and identified a list of deficiencies. Staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission disapprove the final plat for all the deficiencies listed and delegate to staff the ability to accept and approve the plat once those deficiencies are corrected.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Okay. At this time, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name, and sign in. Having no one come forward, I will go ahead now and close the public hearing. And Commissioners, if there are no questions or discussion, may I have a motion, please?
Move to disapprove due to deficiencies, delegate it to the staff, and bring it back for signatures.
Second by Francis.
Motion by Karen, second by Francis. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. The next item is public hearings for zoning and special use permits. This item is consideration of a zone change request from Plan Development Mixed Use District to Plan Development Mixed Use District on an approximately 35.77 acre tract of land out of the P.K. Wagoner Survey Abstract Number 1342, located at the northern terminus of Summit Avenue on the west side of Interstate Highway 35E, North Stemmons Freeway, and on the east side of McGee Lane, as requested by Randy Rivera McAdams on behalf of Merdad Moyadi, MM Frontera LLC, the property owner.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. So you all may remember when this came back before you under the name Frontera. They've gone through more analysis of the site, and they did find some environmental contaminants that do require some remediation. Due to that and some of the financial difficulties that's posed, they have made some changes to the site. And so they are coming back now to amend to do a new plan development. A lot of it is staying the same. The layout of the townhomes is staying the same. The layout of the multifamily subdistrict is staying the same. The townhomes on the south side of Moccasin will be rental townhomes, as they will have to have vapor barriers installed just to deal with any contamination issues. The bulk of the changes, though, are occurring with the mixed-use district that's along I-35. Previously, it was thought that there might be a hotel there, and it was sort of designed with that in mind. Under the current economic situation, that's really not feasible, so it really is going to be multifamily above retail. There'll be 30,000 square foot of retail, 8,000 square foot of that being restaurants. They are proposing some alternative street sections with on-street parking. Those have not changed. They do have some fairly tight townhome layouts with some tight setbacks to create that urban feel, but they are providing a number of open spaces throughout the development that will be publicly accessible, with the exception that the swimming pool would be private in the townhome HOA lot, and that would just be accessible by residents and owners of those townhomes. There will be a water feature incorporated into the open space that's along I-35E. It's anticipated that that will kind of be a focal point for a lot of the commercial businesses and restaurants in that section of the corridor. In addition, the next item on the agenda for Gas Monkey is in partnership with the same developer, and that's why we're bringing them together on the same agenda. However, they are separate applications, and so we are going to consider them separately and vote on them separately, but just they do build off of each other. So that Gas Monkey will be a large restaurant and entertainment venue that will kind of feed off of the activity in Frontera and vice versa. There will be a number of public streets and alleys that will be provided. They've also provided elevations. So these are elevations for the proposed mixed-use building. You can see what that might look like. There is parking, some podium ground floor tuck under parking. They've also provided elevations of the other multifamily building, and a number along one portion of this, they are going to have 5,000 square feet of live work, and that will have a slightly more commercial looking store frontage. And then let's get down. The last elevations that we have are for the townhomes, which is a very traditional, primarily brick aesthetic. So they are asking for a few alternative standards, and we'll talk about those more when we get to our overlay board meeting this evening, but they are asking for 4 that require council action and an additional 3 that can be approved by the overlay board. So if you have any questions related to the zoning or uses, I'm happy to answer them at this time, and I know our applicant is here and they have a presentation as well.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Are there any questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Okay. This time I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name, sign in.
Thank you, Commission. Ashton Miller, 111 Hillside Drive, Louisville, Texas, 75077. And I'm a planner on behalf of, or with McAdams, and I'm presenting on behalf of Centurion American. So just to go over, again, with this site, the surrounding area is situated between McGee Lane and I-35. You have the currently vacant Zone Action Park to the south, which is also on this agenda for your consideration tonight. And then you have the commercial developments directly adjacent to 407. So just to get a little bit more detailed on the site, to the left you have an aerial that depicts the site in its current state. It's currently vacant with a number of trees and vegetation growing on the site. And then to the right you have the topography showing. So as Michelle stated, this project was presented back in April under the Frontera plan development. There have been a few changes to this site since it was last presented. The townhomes that are south of Moccasin are now going to be for rental townhomes due to the environmental constraints that are presented on the site. And it is still anticipated that the townhomes to the north of Moccasin are going to be for sale units. There are no proposed changes to the urban living district just north of Moccasin. And then the bulk of the changes that you're going to see tonight are in the mixed use or commercial district just adjacent to Interstate 35. So to get into more specifics of this site, there are 201 townhome units shown on this site, which is the same as what was proposed with the Frontera development. There are 794 multifamily units being proposed on site. Initially, with the previous proposal, there were 773 multifamily units proposed. And the increase in multifamily units is going to be in the commercial district adjacent to 35. And there are 300, to distribute the multifamily units a little bit more, there are 300 in the commercial district and 494 units in the urban living district. With this proposal, we're proposing just over 5 acres of open space, which is approximately 14% of the acreage of the site. And then there's going to be a mixture of different types of parking, whether it's tuck under parking beneath a multifamily unit, garage parking, or on-street parking. So to go through those changes to the commercial portion of this property, there for building 1, which is to the north of this district, just south of Moccasin, there was previously a parking garage proposed. That is no longer a part of this request. The parking that will be provided for the multifamily unit will be what was initially proposed with building 2, where there will be surface level parking with a podium on top of the surface level, and then from the podium there will be the multifamily units. So that's going to now be provided on building 1 as well as building 2. A difference in this site is previously you could see the multifamily, or I'm sorry, the parking, surface level parking for building 2 and building 1 underneath the multifamily units as you're driving by. In an effort to shield that surface level parking underneath the multifamily units, that is now going to be retail space that will front onto 35. However, there will not be any retail fronting onto Moccasin. We felt that there was better visibility for the retail if it was fronting onto Interstate 35 as opposed to Moccasin, as you're essentially queuing up to leave the site and get onto the frontage road of 35. And with that, that concludes the presentation for this proposal for you tonight, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Mr. Miller, I'm not sure that I understand what the difference is to making more the rentals rather than sales regarding the environmental concerns. Why the change?
Sure, because there are environmental concerns with buying a piece of property, and it has been recommended that those townhome units that are sitting on top of an area that is going to have to be cleaned up in order to make development occur on the property, that those units go to rental as opposed to buying into the piece of property, just as a liability, to the seller of the property.
Hi, my name is Derek Goodman, and I'm a consultant. Well, my company's a consultant for the developer, the owner of the property. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I live in Louisville also at 716 Wiltshire Boulevard, which is in Castle Hills. And to add to what Ashton said, it's a challenging site because of the environmental issues. And after meeting at length and having many discussions with a lot of different consultants, including attorneys, and they felt we could control the development, both vertical and horizontal development. If we, had in perpetuity, so to speak, if we had the control of the, all the units. Whereas if you sell them over the environmental area, if you sell them one at a time, here's a for instance. If someone were to had a slab failure, for instance, and they did not properly address that slab failure and they drilled through the vapor barrier, let's say. I'm an ex-home builder, I'm just making this up as I go. But they didn't properly remediate that vapor barrier when they addressed that slab failure. And they drilled pier down through there or something and they didn't properly fix it. Whereas if you own all those rental homes, you can control all of that and make sure it's done properly for the health of the tenants and for the legal concerns of the owner, and for the well-being and best interest of every party concerned in the entire project, including the residents. So that's kind of a.
So who will own the properties that you are going to be renting?
Well, at the moment, the developer's planning, the current plan, which I don't want to make any permanent commitments, but currently the plan by the developer, and I personally talk to him on a regular basis, and as of this minute, the current plan is that he will build those houses, and on the south side of Moxon, we'll lease those, own them, and at some point sell them, as a rental portfolio at some point down the road. And but there will be deed restrictions in place that will govern, what can be done and what can't be done to protect the residents and the owners as well. Just to make sure we have a very, very good lawyer involved in the deed restrictions and everything else with the firm Lock Lord, who you may have heard of, but she's an expert in environmental issues. So we've, by design, selected that firm and that particular person to be involved in this challenging development for that reason. So, but we believe if we have the right parties involved, that it can be done right, it can be done safely, and it can be done the right way, and it can be part of the Northern Gateway, and it can be, a win-win-win for everybody, for the city, for the developer, for the residents, and it'll just be a wonderful development that everybody will enjoy. So I don't know if that addresses your question or not. But.
No, I think I understand.
Okay.
Commissioners, are there any other questions?
Yeah, how many units are going to be rental versus for sale?
Good question. So on the south side of, I believe it's Moccasin, I think there are 146 units that would be rental. Mm-hmm. And then on the north side, I believe there are 55 that would be along McGee, between McGee and the the northern multifamily site that would be for sale. That's the plan currently.
What's the nature of the environmental issue?
Groundwater contamination that, as best they can tell, came from dry cleaners that's to the south, just on the south of the property line. And so they can tell by the chemicals and so forth. That's how they determine it.
So the remediation they're doing is creating this vapor cover?
Yes, ma'am. There'll be vapor barriers, and then there'll be what's called, and again, this is not I'm by no means an environmental expert, but we have consultants who are, and going from memory from what they tell me, and I can't remember all the terminology, but there'll be as I recall, what's called a municipal settings district, which will be, excuse me, the best, in putting it in layman's term, it announces to the public that, there is in fact groundwater contamination in a certain area, and that therefore the water's not potable, you can't drink the water underneath the ground that's in the groundwater, and it kind of, things like that. It identifies it, announces it to the public, and it's registered with a TCEQ.
To jump in on the MSD process, it is a public process, and the city is going to be involved in that as well. Okay. With a municipal setting designation, basically the city is going to certify that, yes, we are providing city water to this area, so groundwater utilization isn't necessary, and that won't be used. But as part of that process, also notification goes out, I think, to all well owners within 5 miles of the subject site, just to notify them of any potential so they can have their wells checked, or if there are any. I doubt that there probably aren't within this particular area, but that'll all be researched and notified. It's a fairly lengthy process, but that will have to be something, if your consultant's saying you need to do that, they'll have to make an application to the city, but at the end of the day, it will be up to TCEQ to approve it or not.
Okay.
We have consultants that are hired that have been, as I understand it, have worked with the city of Louisville before, Terracon, and that will be hired to take care of all that on behalf of the developer.
And that process addresses any stormwater or any runoff during construction as well?
Yeah, as part of that, they will look at the potential for the contamination to go off-site in future.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I have a question regarding your parking spaces. How many parking spaces will you have for the residents? And then how many parking spaces will you have overall that is shared? And will there be enough for the residents and the folks that are visiting the area to enjoy or to be able to park?
Sure. So the parking ratio designated for, so your question is related to the townhome units, or is it overall for the
shared? Yeah, for overall. How many is required, I guess, basically would be my question.
Yeah, sure.
And how many have y'all provided, and is there going to be enough space for everyone to enjoy this area?
Sure. So required by code, based on the parking ratios that we have proposed and staff has accepted, 1,291 parking stalls are required for the mixture of uses on site, and the parking that we are providing, not counting the on-street parking, is 1,244. If you count the on-street parking, we're providing 1,569.
So there'll be more than enough. Okay.
Correct.
That was my concern. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay, thank you, Mr. Goodman and Mr. Miller. And if there is anyone else wanting to speak on this item, please come forward at this time.
This is for the public hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I filled out a speaker card. Yeah, my name is Brian Salveson. I live at 1333 Brazos Boulevard. So that's just kind of north west of here. And so I actually bought my house just over a year ago. And so I saw that it was zoned for this. I knew that y'all had the gateway study either kind of coming out or published by that point. And so I was really excited to see this finally come to development or to concept plans. I just kind of wish there was more commercial. That way it's more of a destination for kind of the people that live around there. It's just very residential heavy. So I could walk my dogs around there, I see that. I just kind of wish there was more services to me there. Talking to some of the neighbors around there, we actually kind of feel more attached to Highland Village than Louisville. So it'll be great to have a place like this and something like this. And I'm all for it. I don't want y'all to think I'm here opposing it. I support it. Just kind of wish there was more commercial. But glad to have some sort of amenity out there and some sort of public gathering space out there too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Michelle?
If I could just address, I know the desire for commercial has been discussed quite a bit. Our next item on the agenda will show another kind of commercial development that's going in the general area. And then also just on the south side of 407, the city has purchased land that's part of the Northern Gateway and is partnering with a developer to bring in a lot more commercial to the general area. And we're hoping this residential will support that endeavor.
Okay, good.
Yes, if I may add some details to that. The 25 acres on the south side of 407 is the concentration is to, or the goal is to have that to all be commercial with a mixture of possibly a grocery store, retail, restaurants, office, and possibly a hotel. So that will really serve as kind of the commercial core for the overall 300-acre Northern Gateway. Keep in mind that this is a 37-acre piece out of the overall 300 acres that makes up the Northern Gateway.
Okay. Commissioners, any discussion? Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, at this time I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And if there's no further discussion among commissioners, then I would entertain a motion, please.
Apologies, I got logged out.
May I have a motion?
Oh, are you ready?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I recommend approval of the zone change request as set forward, as set forth.
Okay, motion by Aaron.
Second by Francis.
Second by Francis. Please vote.
Okay.
Oh, it
What I'm
says,
seeing to vote on
yeah.
is a disapproval.
yeah, I see that also.
Yeah, it's a different item.
I apologize, it was on the wrong item. Okay, so Aram, and then the second was
Francis.
Francis.
There we go.
You want us to revote?
Please
Okay.
vote again, yes.
Okay, vote now. Motion passes 6-0.
Yes, thank you. This item will go for a second public hearing and final public hearing with City Council on December the 20th.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, the next item is another public hearing, consideration of a zone change request from Light Industrial District to Planned Development General Business District on an approximately 7.035 acre tract of land being Lot 1R, Block B of the Blake C. Bowen Addition, located at 1951 North Summit Avenue, as requested by Ashton Miller McAdams on behalf of Merdad Moyadi, developer, and Rounds of Fun Limited, the property owner.
Good evening again, Commissioners. So this property is more commonly known as Fun Zone. It's currently a mini golf and go-kart track facility. So the developer for Lakeside Crossing, which was our previous item, is also partnering with other folks to redevelop the Fun Zone and turn it into a Gas Monkey restaurant, bar, and entertainment venue. So they would be updating and keeping the go-karts and the mini golf. They would also be adding a stage for outdoor concert and events. And in the future, they would also like to add another sort of entertainment or amusement ride, something like a large swing or Ferris wheel or zip line, something of that nature. They're not quite sure yet. That would be done at a future phase. So what they're proposing to do is use the existing site. They are going to add 51 more parking spaces. This is the existing site, as you can see here on the screen before you. They are going to take that and add more parking, add a stage that's going to be at the northwest corner. This stage is in fairly close proximity to some of the proposed townhomes. So in order to alleviate any noise concerns with the adjacent townhomes, the applicant has agreed to hire a noise consultant to look at both the dBH and the bass sound that they might hear from any sort of concert venues. So they have agreed, to limit the hours of the amplified noise to no later than 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and no later than 11:30 Friday and Saturday nights. And so that will alleviate the hours. They've also made a commitment that there will be sound no greater than 65 dBH inside any of the residential units that are nearby. They haven't quite identified how they are going to reach that goals, and there's a number of mitigation steps that they can take in the way that they set up the speakers and design them and put up sound barriers and the like, but those are the parameters and the performance standards that they've agreed to with this plan development. The latest version that was included in the packet didn't have that 65 dBH on the interior of residences, but that is something that they've agreed to, and with your recommendation tonight, we'll make sure that that gets included when this goes to City Council. 65 dBH is equivalent to a washing machine running or something like that in the house. But we all know that bass sound isn't necessarily registered like that, and you feel the vibrations more, so they've also committed to kind of looking into the bass sound to direct that and then to cancel it out so that neighbors aren't disturbed by any of those vibrations that they might otherwise hear or feel, since that was a large concern of ours with this being an entertainment use so close to residential uses. Okay. The other concern we did have was parking. If they are having large concerts or events, and so what they have agreed to do, we feel that the parking is adequate for, standard local kind of open mic nights or other entertainment and just for the restaurant and entertainment use. But if they're having a large draw, maybe a different headliner that's going to draw more crowds, they've agreed to provide the city a parking plan if they expect to sell more than 450 tickets to any venue. And this would likely have some sort of off-site parking with shuttling. And the location of that would be determined on a case-by-case basis, just depending on what the needs were based on the event. But that's to hopefully alleviate any parking spillover on the adjacent properties and in those residential neighborhoods. There is on-street parking that is public, but again, we want to make sure that we're not spilling over and impacting those townhome residents as much as we can. So at 455 ticket sales, they would need to provide a parking plan per the zoning, as that would be a violation of zoning not to do that. So the other item that's kind of an interesting request with this one that I want to touch on is they are requesting a large sign. And so this is kind of new and unique, but they are requesting, they're typically allowed 3 signs with an aggregate total of 450 square feet, but no electronic display. They are requesting 1 large sign. that's about 200 square feet, but is electronic display, and that would allow them to advertise the upcoming performances and different artists that would be coming to perform there. So this would replace the Fun Zone sign that would be out there today, and they would be limited to this one pole sign. It does have a masonry wrapped frame, and it is aesthetic. It's fairly similar to the sign that's at the Realm in Castle Hills, if you're familiar with that sign. They will be enhancing the building architecture. So the existing restaurant is kind of a brick veneer. They're going to be giving it a sort of shell covering that is fiber, it is a cementitious board, and that will give it kind of a more modern and also a little bit of a mechanical look. They will paint the existing brick, and then they will put on this other veneer. In addition, they'll add awnings and they'll punch in more windows. They are going to decorate the building with old automotive-related antique signage to kind of convey the theme of the restaurant. And we do consider this signage because it does have brand names and logos on it, and so they are asking for a variance for the signage because all of these, like if they did get that specific mobile sign, which is just representative at this point, it would be considered signage based on it's a brand and a logo. They also have a new building that they're going to put in, which is a garage, and this is where they'll have cars on display. So they'll do maybe antique cars, classic cars, those types of things. And so this is a display garage so people can look at the vehicles. And this will have a metal roof. It's mostly kind of a scrap metal feel. It does have a storefront. It does have garage doors. It's very open and very visible. The back side of it faces where they'll have their outdoor patio area. And that side's going to be covered with murals that have the Gas Monkey logo and name. Because it's got the Gas Monkey name and logo, that's also considered signage. But it does kind of create a cool atmosphere and a little bit of a different vibe. In addition, they are providing the stage elevations, and you can see it's a primarily brick stage, but a lot of the materials do tie back into the other two structures that they will have on the site. So this is a planned development zone change. It was originally submitted as an SUP for outside entertainment. The property is currently zoned light industrial, so with this planned development, they changed the base zoning district to general business, and they would maintain and expand the outdoor entertainment uses. Staff is here if you have any questions about this zoning change. There's also a number of alternative standards that we can talk about at the overlay board, but those are to allow the new buildings to be placed where they're shown in the concept plan, and that's kind of building off the existing building rather than to place them along Summit. You can see they're kind of closer to the gas line easement, which there will be the trail that goes through Frontera will connect down to this use as well. To allow a parking lot, which is the existing parking lot between the building and Summit, to allow the existing block length to be respected and to not cut the property up with additional public streets. For landscaping, because they are utilizing an existing parking lot, they do want to provide the required amount of landscaping trees, which is 1 per 8 spaces. They just want to relocate those elsewhere on site. Otherwise, they will meet all the other I-35 landscaping standards. And then they want to park the stage area at 1 parking space per 4 people at an assumed occupancy of 1 person per 15 square foot for that entertainment area. And that's above the minimum I-35 overlay of 1 space per 300, but we feel that's very necessary in this case. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Commissioners, is there any comments for staff, questions? Okay, at this time I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name, sign in. Hello again, Mr. Miller.
Hello. Asher Miller, 111 Hillside Drive, Louisville, Texas, 75077. Really don't have anything to add with Michelle's presentation. I'm just happy to bring a project like this on behalf of Centurion American and bring such a unique and dynamic thing to an area much needed and a site much needed for the city of Louisville. So I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Anything, commissioners? Any questions? Comments, concern?
Just so that I understand correctly, Gas Monkey is the restaurant, or is Gas Monkey the entertainment event venue?
It's going to be owned and operated by both, by a single person. Mhm.
Okay.
Is this kind of like the lava cantina concept in the Colony? Is it?
I would say it's compatible to that, sure. However, the stage is not going to be enclosed like it is at Lava Cantina, but it's overall it's the same concept.
They have other locations, don't they?
Yes, they. I know for sure of the one in Dallas. I know that there are a couple others as well.
The one in Dallas rebranded, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Please come forward and state your name, sign in. Okay, having no one else come forward, I'll go ahead now and close the public hearing. Is there any discussion, commissioners?
I'm curious if Mr. Bryan, who lives in the area where they're going to build, if he's okay with this out there. Okay.
Okay, if there are no concerns or questions, may I have a motion, please?
I move to recommend approval to City Council.
Motion by Jordan,
Second.
second by Alvin. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0.
And this item will also go before the city council on December the 20th for a
Okay.
final public hearing, final decision.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next is another public hearing for consideration of a zone change request from Agricultural Open Space District to Planned Development Estate Townhouses District on approximately 7.288 acres out of the L. Burgess Survey, abstract number 52, located at 2328, 2316, 2304, and 2274 South Euchre Lane, as requested by Josh Barton and Patricia Fat McAdams on behalf of Ventikaramana Marari, the developer, and the Robert E. and Dorothy Todd Revocable Living Trust, Robert and Sharon Todd, Charles B. Liams, Mary Ellen Nejtek, John Samuel, and Dina Ann Wilson, the property owners.
Good evening. So this property is currently zoned agricultural open space. It has been that way for a long time. It consists of mostly approximately 2-acre tracts that are single-family land. We've had a lot of inquiries for development over the years on this particular piece of property. We have always encouraged people to kind of assemble all of that land that's zoned agricultural open space that's between Oak Bend Drive and Euchre Lane. The applicant was not able to assemble all those tracts. Several of the owners do not want to sell at this point in time, but they did come up with a plan that staff thought was flexible and would allow for future development to connect in the future in a way that worked and would be easy enough to do. And so I'll pull up their concept plan for you now. So this is the property, and what they're proposing to do is single-family detached homes. And they have 2 single-loaded streets. So the street right-of-way runs nearly along the north property line and the south property line. And that allows whoever develops to the north or to the south, if those lots ever redevelop, flexibility in how they're going to connect and lay out their streets. And that was important to staff to make sure that we didn't have just a bunch of cul-de-sac streets in this area and that we had some connectivity and more of a neighborhood feel long-term. In addition, they've provided 25% open space, which is about a 1.5 0.8 acre area. This is a heavily wooded area. It's a lot of mature post oaks. It's actually really beautiful. I walked it with our Parks Department, and they would accept that as park dedication to meet the park dedication ordinance. So as part of this PD, it would be required that they provide it. It could be public or private. Parks has indicated that they're open to taking it as a public piece of land. In addition, they will be planting additional trees on the lots as is required. They also will not be providing fencing along Euchre. It's typically required. However, they are providing a landscape buffer along Euchre and saving the existing trees. We also don't want to fence off the open space from the rest of the community. We wanted to make sure that was open, so staff is supportive of that. What they would like to do that's interim is they would like to do a wooden fence on the north and the south along those rights-of-ways just to screen those adjacent properties until such time as they do develop. So they would do a 2-foot open space lot that is also an easement, and so that easement could be interrupted when the development comes into the north and the south at that time. But in the meantime, those lots would be screened, so there's a level of privacy there, and that it benefits really both property owners. So they were proposing to do a maximum of 37 lots, although they would need to reserve an area that would be detention. Their hope is to acquire the adjacent property so that they can finish out the development in the future, but whether it's them or someone else, there is that opportunity that will be there. They've provided an example that shows how that could be done. This is just kind of a mock-up. This is not saying that this is what they would do or that staff would approve this, but just to kind of give you an idea of how they could make this connected and create a more unified neighborhood with the layout that they've proposed. So this is a planned development. The base zoning district would be a state townhouse. The lots would be a minimum of 4,000 square feet. They would be 39 foot in width, and they would have minimum 6 foot that would be between the homes for maintenance and side yard purposes. That could potentially be 3 yard. They've provided it right now as 3 foot side yard setbacks. We also want to leave the availability that they do a 5 and a 1, and that allows them to put more windows on one side of the building rather than a 3 foot setback. So we also want to make sure that that option's available instead of just 2 3-foot side yard setbacks, a 5 and a 1. So you can still get around your property and maintain it, but you can have more windows on that 5 foot side. If you have any questions, staff is available for those, and so is the applicant's development team.
Michelle, so single-family detached homes, not
Correct.
townhomes? Okay.
Not townhomes, these would be detached.
And just out of curiosity, the parcels on the north and south where they're not able to acquire those right now, are those just empty? I mean, I know that area is wooded. I'm just trying to picture. Is there anything on those north and south right now?
So on the north, there used to be 2 homes. Those
Yeah.
homes were really recently removed. So there's nothing to the north anymore.
Okay.
To the south, there are 2 homes. Those homes are occupied. Those owners do not have any desire to sell at this point in time. Any other questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Okay. This time I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, sign in and state your name. Having no one come forward, I will go ahead now and close the public hearing. Commissioners, is there any discussion on this item? No. Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to recommend approval to the city council as presented.
Motion by Francis,
I second.
second by Karen. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. This item will go to City Council for a second and final public hearing at their meeting on January the 3rd. Okay, thank you, Michelle. The next item on the agenda is announcements. What do we have for announcements this evening? Anything?
Just real quick, if you haven't had a chance to log in and watch the Texas Cross Collaborative Conference session online, those are available. I've watched a few of the sessions that I've really enjoyed them. So if you have any trouble, please contact staff and we can help you out.
Okay, thank you. All right, then, the next item then would be to adjourn the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. May I have a motion, please?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Karen,
Second.
second by Aram. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, the Overlay District Board is also going to be meeting this evening. I'm going to go ahead and call that meeting to order. We do have a quorum present. The first item on the agenda is to consider approval of the minutes of the November 16th, 2021 joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Motion by Aram. I'm sorry, I can't hear on the side. Motion by Aram.
Second by Francis.
Second by Francis. Thank you. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda for the Overlay Board is consideration of 7 alternative standards associated with the proposed lakeside crossing development on an approximately 35.77 acre tract of land out of the P.K. Wagner Survey, abstract number 1342, located at the northern terminus of Summit Avenue on the west side of Interstate Highway 35E and the east side of McGee Lane, as requested by Randy Rivera McAdams on behalf of Merdad Moyadi, MM Frontera LLC, the property owner.
Yes, good evening. So there are actually 7 alternative standards requested. 4 of those require council action and 3 of those may be approved by the Overlay Board this evening. This is actually one less than was originally approved back in April, and that was a parking for the hotel. We actually changed the parking requirement in our code for the hotel since then, so even if they had a hotel now, they wouldn't need that one, but that was removed. So they are asking for the same ones. The first one is to allow a setback of 12.5 feet on the townhome streets and 14.5 foot setback on Moccasin Trail and Summit Avenue in lieu of a 10-foot Build 2 zone. A 14.5 foot to 35 foot Build 2 zone along Moccasin Trail for the commercial and multifamily buildings in lieu of the 10-foot Build 2 zone, and a build-out frontage of 70% in lieu of 80% for the commercial and multifamily buildings. They're asking for a reduction in landscape buffer along I-35 to 15 feet in lieu of 20 feet. They're asking to increase the maximum block length to 1,000 feet in lieu of 600 foot, and to allow an increase in the maximum block perimeter to 3,000 feet. They're asking to allow a reduction to 60 and 70% stone or brick for buildings, provided that the remaining 30 or 35% is a 3/4 inch cement-based stucco. And then that remaining 5% in some cases could be other materials. So those are the 4 that require council action, A through D, and then the 3 that can be approved by the Overlay Board tonight are to allow the alternative street sections, to allow a reduction in the landscape area between the parking lot and the street to be 4 foot instead of 5 foot, and to allow a parking ratio of 1.45 for the urban living subdistrict and 1.4 for the mixed use subdistrict. So staff is here if you have any questions on any of those alternative standards.
Commissioners, any questions for staff? Okay, any discussion? Okay, if there are no questions or discussion, may I have a motion, please?
I recommend approval of alternative standards A through D and approval of alternative standards E through G as presented.
Motion by Aram,
Second.
Second by Jordan. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. And those alternative standards requiring council approval will go to City Council on December the 20th.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. The next item is consideration of 8 alternative standards associated with the proposed Gas Monkey entertainment venue on an approximately 7.035 acre tract of land, being Lot 1R, Block B of the Blake C. Bowen Addition, located at 1951 North Summit Avenue, as requested by Ashton Miller McAdams on behalf of Merdad Moyadi, developer, and Rounds of Fun Limited, the property owner.
Yeah, so there are 8 alternative standards associated with this request that all require approval by the City Council. One is to allow the new buildings to be placed as shown on the attached concept plan in lieu of the building setback and placement requirements in the I-35 overlay. B, to allow a parking lot between the building and Summit Avenue. C, to allow the maximum 1,600-foot block length to be exceeded by using the existing street network. D, to allow the required parking lot trees to be planted elsewhere on site in lieu of being planted in 10-foot wide landscape islands every 8 spaces. E, to park the stage area at 1 parking space per 4 people at an assumed occupancy of 668 based on 1 person per 15 square feet. To allow, F, to allow a 30-foot freestanding sign with a 200 square foot changeable message board in lieu of 3 60-foot tall signs with an aggregate total of 450 square feet, although this one will likely be removed as it's actually not part of the I-35 overlay standard. It can just be approved with the plan development when it gets to the council level. And G, to allow windows as shown in the attached elevations in lieu of the minimum 40 and 60% that's required in the I-35 overlay. And then the last, to allow the building materials to be as shown in the elevations in lieu of 80% brick or stone. And that's just to give it a more modern aesthetic and raise the profile of the building a little bit. So staff has no objections to those requests. Again, they all do require a recommendation from the overlay board to the City Council. If you have any questions, we are here.
Thank you, Michelle. Commissioners, any questions for staff, any concerns?
Michelle, when do they plan on having this completed by?
That's a really great question. I'm not quite sure what the time frame is for the Gas Monkey. I don't know if that's going to be in front of Frontier or not. Do y'all know? End of next year, they say. End of next year.
So approximately a year from now.
Approximately a year, yeah.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Okay. May I have a motion, please?
Move to recommend alternative standards A through H to council.
Motion by Karen,
Second.
second by Aram. Vote now.
Alvin would, oh, there it goes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Yes, thank you. And all of those will go to City Council for a final decision on December the 20th.
Okay. Next, we have the consideration of 5 alternative standards associated with the proposed industrial building on a 19.5 acre lot legally described as Arthur James Addition, Block A, lots 2R, 3R, and 4R, located at the northeast corner of Arthur's Lane and the Interstate Highway 35E frontage road, zoned light industrial district, as requested by William Shannon of Hines.
Good evening, Overlay Board. Hines is looking to develop 3 warehouses in Louisville's Southern Gateway in the transition subdistrict of the I-35 overlay. Each of these 5 alternative standards will require recommendation to City Council. So the first alternative standard is to waive the 2,400 maximum block perimeter. A similar alternative standard has been allowed for the MacArthur Business Park, which was a similar type development also in the transition subdistrict. The reason for this is just the location of the site as it conflicts with Timber Creek and I-35 and Sam Rayburn. So this is, staff recommends that. The second alternative standard is to allow a fire and life safety emergency access only driveway to be constructed at less than 300-foot minimum driveway spacing requirements. The I-35 does require at least 300 feet from each driveway between them, but this conflicts with the International Fire Code, which requires that there's driveways depending on the longest diagonal of the site. This driveway will be the southernmost and will be gated and only accessible by emergency vehicles. Staff has no objection to this. There are some architectural standards, the first being a 60-foot reduction to the required awnings on each building's front facade, and to allow a 7-foot sidewalk in lieu of the required 12-foot sidewalk. Both of these are similar in nature. These requirements were for a more commercial type development, which would have more pedestrian traffic. As these are warehouse buildings, there's not much anticipated pedestrian traffic. Staff has no objection to these. Finally, there is one landscape alternative standard. This is to allow 25%, to waive the 25% requirement for open space to be along public right-of-way. The applicant is providing all of the required open space per the I-35 code, but they are doing this along a trail easement that's along Timber Creek. Staff feels that this meets the intent of the code. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on any of these alternative standards.
Thank you, Jonathan. Commissioners, do we have any questions on these? Comments? Discussion? May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to recommend approval of all the alternative standards as presented.
Motion by Francis,
Second.
second by Aaron. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. These items will be going to City Council on December 20th for a final action.
Okay. And the final item on our agenda for this evening is adjournment of the overlay board. May I have a motion, please?
Move to
I
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn. But before I do that, I did want to mention, and I didn't mention this earlier, that I wanted to thank the developers or the consultants that are here today on behalf of the developers. It's wonderful that the developers have decided to revitalize that area that's not being used. So if you can pass along that message, that would be great. Thank you very much. And I do make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Francis,
Second.
second by Jordan. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned.